Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om Sai Ishwaraya Vidmahi Satyadevaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarva Prachodayat Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahe Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahe Om Asato ma Sagamaya Tamaso ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukh Bhagavave Om Shanti 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 Om Shri Sai Ram. Good evening, all of you. Welcome to day 10 of the Atma Chalisa Parayanam. So yesterday we spoke about another important law, and we spoke about the energy, frequency and vibration, which is the law of creative life force. And a day before that, on day 8, we spoke about the law of karma, which is cause and effect. So in continuation with that understanding from the energetic principle, which is life, within and without, we today talk about another principle or another law, and that is called the law of opposing forces. We may also call it the law of duality. So what do I mean by the opposing forces, and why are we talking about all this when we are talking about realizing and experiencing the Atman? We are discussing all this because we want to understand the framework which really regulates life on this planet and the laws that impact that life. And an understanding of that will give us a clear understanding of what this creation is, and therefore who are we with reference to this creation. So this reference point is important, and it's like those basic things that we learned in school about mathematics, physics, chemistry, geography, history, world sciences, that we need to understand about when we are going towards experiencing that self. How are we related to everything else? And how this oneness or this one consciousness is there everywhere, despite the fact that everything looks so different. We look so different. We are right now 20 of us on a call. Each of us look different. Each one of us are as different, in our thinking, in our food that we eat, in the language. So therefore, this whole universe has duality in it, which means that there is so much of choice, there is so much of variation, there is so much of difference. And on top of it, everything has been put in this world into diametrically opposite forces, or as I call, the law of opposing forces. So what is this law? This is the law which says that there is darkness and then there is light. It is a law which says there is good and then there is evil. It is a law which says there is right and then there is wrong. It's a law which says there is night and then there is day. Okay? Everywhere that you look around you, you will find this law in operation. There is always the two, the good and the not so good, the right and the not so right, the light and the darkness. And it is this play which actually is so critical to this drama of life. It is so critical for our experiencing the truth of ourselves. It is the playing field in which an individual soul which gets a birth, which is carrying the same consciousness, yet it separates from the mothership or the mother universal life force and comes down. And since it takes a body, it starts to separate itself from that universal energetic life force which is everywhere. And since it has a body, and since it has a name, and since it has a religion, and since it has a culture, it starts to see itself as separate. And therefore, the whole world of duality starts to take shape as soon as we are born on this planet. And therefore, we are given a name, we are given a father's name, a mother's name, a family name, and we start to see ourselves as either a child, a son, or a daughter in a family. We see ourselves as separate. We are told that we are a family, and this family is separate from others. We go to a school, we sit in a class, we see ourselves as separate from other students, and so on. As we keep growing, this separation and this duality keeps coming in. We keep separating ourselves from everything else because that is our whole sense of self-identity. And so on, it keeps going, and we keep seeing separation, separation, separation. Whenever we see goodness, we start to gravitate towards it. Whenever we see what we do not like, we start to move away from it. Okay? And these dual forces of good and bad and light and darkness continue to keep operating the entire play of consciousness. Now, if the whole idea is that we are divine being, and if there is one energetic consciousness, we should ask why negativity or darkness was ever created. Why, if it is the same consciousness, why and how can it be dark? How can it be bad? Why is there a separation between good and bad? It's a very logical question that each one of us should definitely put some attention and time in it and try and investigate why there is a play and why is this play so important. And to know the importance of that will tell us that this play will continue and continues till perpetuity, because this is what life on this planet is. It plays between two extreme polarities. And we come between these two extreme polarities, and we have to find our way between two reference points. One is the extreme limit of right, and there is an extreme limit of left. And in between, whole play of life, all situations, events, we grow up from childhood into youth, into adulthood, into old age, and we die. The entire drama happens when different situations, different circumstances, different events keep coming into our life. Now, let me go back to that question of why this duality is essential and what does this duality does to us and how it helps us in experiencing the truth of ourselves, our innate divine consciousness. You see, we've heard this many times before that when we have to make butter from milk, then the milk must be churned. When you look at milk per se, we have to apply another force to it so that the cream out of the milk can be separated, right? You may say we are hurting the milk because we are applying force on it. When we make cream, out of that cream, we again apply some force to create butter out of it, right? From a carbon, we have to keep applying an opposing force to it till we get the diamond out of it, right? To apply a force which is not inherent in the essential elements of a particular thing or an object, and applying that opposite force to it, it creates a new form. It brings new qualities which are far more attractive and far more precious. And that is how, when you look at it, the reason that we love daytime is because there is night. If we were living in some of those Nordic countries where there is only night for 3 or 4 months, and for a couple of months where they have only daytime, you ask those people how difficult it is to live in such places. We appreciate goodness only because there is some set of people who are not so good. We appreciate the light because there is darkness. And because there is negativity, it inspires us to become positive. If you look back at your life and see that whenever adverse opportunities or adverse circumstances or adverse situations came into our life, it is when we rose up to the challenge and we became a better versions of ourselves. Every time adversity comes, a challenge comes, it makes us a better version of ourselves. Each one of us has had up to 50, 60, 70 years of experience. And when we look back at life, when we look back at all the challenges that we have faced in our life, and every time we thought that the challenge was insurmountable, look how we came out of it, and how we became wiser, and how we became maybe not stronger in the body, but stronger in the spirit. So all the situations and events that come in our life, they are meant for a certain reason. They are orchestrated by that divine consciousness, which is as much inside of us as is outside of us. And everybody who comes in our life as our life partner, or our children, or our employers, or our employees, or our friends, or our whatever relationship we have with them, they come in our life for a certain reason. And that reason is only for making us grow and evolve into a better version of ourselves. Every situation takes us a little more forward, takes us a little more closer to who we truly are. Because remember, life is a progression. It is not a regression. It is like in our careers. We progress in our careers. We progress in our age. We progress towards our real goal, that is who we truly are, to experience that consciousness which is inside of us. So the so-called negativity, the so-called darkness has actually been very beautifully created by this almighty consciousness, whom we may call as God, only so that we can accept it, face it, and grow from it. As we learn the instincts of how to overcome that opposing force, we grow. There's a beautiful example about a child who one day came back home from the school, and the child was carrying a small pot, a glass pot, and that pot had some water, a little tadpole, very tiny tadpole, and in the center of the bowl, there was actually a small rock. So when the child came home and kept the bowl, the mother asked, "Son, what is this?" And the child said, "Mother, we had a science period, and the science teacher told us to take this bowl home and to keep looking at the tadpole every day and keep watching what is happening." So every day the child would for hours keep looking at that bowl, and it would see that that small little tadpole, very tiny tadpole, would swim around, would try and climb up the rock, but it wouldn't be able to. It would try, it would slip, it would fall back into the water, but it wouldn't give up. After some time it would come back, it would try, but it wasn't able to climb. And this went on for weeks. And every day the same observation, the same noting, no change, same routine of the tadpole slipping. One day the child came running to the mother and said, "Oh mom, come, see what's happened." And the mother went, and both of them saw that now that tadpole was actually sitting on top of the rock. So the child was very excited, on seeing this. And he went and reported to the science teacher in the school. And so the science teacher asked the student, "So tell me, what do you think happened?" And the boy couldn't understand. He said, "I just know, and I'm so happy and I'm so excited that the tadpole is sitting on the rock." So then the science teacher explained. It said that, look, every time the tadpole was trying to climb the rock, its legs were so weak that they could not exert any pressure on the rock, and it would slip and it would fall back. But over the days, as it kept doing it again and again, it slowly built up the muscles, leg muscles of the tadpole. And one day it became strong enough that it could push itself and climb up on the rock, right? Exactly in the same way, each one of us, as we have been facing obstacles and challenging situations in our lives, unknown to us, there are some muscles inside of us. Let's call them spiritual muscles, or the muscles of the spirit, or of the creative life force within, which start getting stronger. And that slowly starts to take us towards a point where we are attending this satsang today, right? This is the importance of the so-called opposing force in our life. Without an opposite force there, we will never progress. If challenges were not there, man would not have advanced in science and technology. Okay, wherever challenge has been, that is how we have grown, and that is how this game of life is played. And that is the reason why all these opposing forces are right now present in the entire world, and the world is going through a phase of deconstruction. If you look around, the way the whole universe is realigning itself, we have been talking about this, that the old order is going to go away and the new will come. And remember that the old and new cannot coexist. Only when the old crumbles does the new come. Okay? We cannot make a new house on top of the old house. We must pull down the old house so that the new house comes up. And that is how constantly we have recreated ourselves. We have reformed our own selves, and we have constantly been evoluting. We have constantly been growing. We've constantly been becoming better and better and better at this. Remember those days when we used to get, if something unfavorable used to happen, not to our liking, not as we had planned, how angry and upset we used to get, right? To a time today that, perhaps either we don't lose our anger, or perhaps out of 100 times, we might lose it 2 or 3 times, right? We have been, each one of us, no matter where we are, we've all been growing. And this growth always comes when a challenge is in front of us, because a challenge tests us. It pushes us. It makes us better than who we believe we really are. It goads us. And therefore, that is the role of so-called negativity. Same God resided in Rama, and the same divine consciousness resided even in Ravana. Both were playing a role. Each one on this planet is actually a manifestation of that same life force. One is using it in the positive context, and the other is using in a negative context. But both these contexts are relevant only for us, because this will give us an understanding of who I am and what is my reference point. Am I on the right? Am I on the left? Or I am in the center? We all need references. We all need an understanding of what's going on and why it's going on. Because everything is a reflection of my inner feelings. If my inner understanding changes, everything around me starts to shift. But to reach that point, I always need something to push me and goad me forward. And as soon as I think I have evoluted and I have reached somewhere, there is always be a test around the corner to check how far have you moved forward in your understanding, right? This you would have experienced all through your life. As soon as you believe you've got something, you can imagine that very day or the very next morning, there's a surprise waiting for you. What is that? It's the consciousness always checking out, is the change permanent or is the change temporary? Have you really moved and grown, or are you still at the threshold? And that is how slowly and gradually we have been becoming a better and better and better at dealing with life and its situations, right? So this whole play of light and dark is only designed for us to experience that one consciousness. The so-called duality in life, the so-called multiplicity in life is nothing but a reflection of that same one consciousness, each one standing in front of us in our life, bringing us all the experiences that are coming to us, are only trying to push us so that we can see that one energetic consciousness which is within, without, which pervades the entire consciousness. That is why this play of two forces continues to happen. And it will happen till there is life on this planet, because it is the way in which this drama happens. We get serious, we start judging, we start calling it names, we start blaming people, we start, when we start doing that is when we start getting caught into what we call as Maya. But if we understand, and we will talk about it tomorrow, we will go further into it, and we will talk about permanence and impermanence tomorrow. But this is how the framework has been set in life, right? And when we hear Atma Shatakam or Nirvana Shatakam by Shankaracharya, he exhorts us that the goal of life is Satchitanand, which is without any attributes, which is without any qualities, which is without any form. However, to reach that Satchitanand, you have to go beyond right and wrong, good and bad, likes and dislikes. You have to go beyond the whole understanding of being in a sacred place, unholy place, or being defined as any particular attribute or any particular association that we may have carried about ourselves so far, which means we reach a point of understanding where we understand that everything is a play of that same energetic life force or that creative principle, and everything else is only playing this role and focusing their energies on us so that we can see that oneness. And that is how we will start progressing further and further in our understanding. And when we stop calling things with a particular mindset, or when we stop wearing those shades of dark glasses where we start seeing darkness in others, where we go away from judging others, because we have a limited understanding, because we look at it from a very limited standpoint, is where we get caught into this whole minefield of creating differences amongst our own selves. Okay, so we will keep bridging this, but it is important for us to understand that how both these good and bad are equally part of that same divine consciousness, and why they are so important and relevant in our journey of life. And the whole idea in our life is to go beyond this. So that means if this force is operating at this level, we raise ourselves up so that we just go above it, right? It's like a rocket. A rocket, when it gets ignited, it requires maximum thrust and maximum power, because it has to leave the gravity, and the maximum force of gravity is pulling this rocket down. But as it keeps going up, it starts experiencing lesser and lesser inertia and pull that, retards its journey. And once it's able to leave the atmosphere of the earth, which is of the judgments and opinions and, us calling things and taking sides, and that happens because we do not understand that everything is that same one principle, that same one consciousness. Those are the things which keep pulling us down every day. Those are the things that make us unhappy. Those are the things that make us heavy in our life. And once we start to get higher and higher up energetically, as well as in our understanding that all this so-called duality is nothing but oneness, we get into an orbit beyond the atmospheric pressure of the planet, where there is simply no pulls and pressures that bind us down. And that state is called the state of equanimity or sthit prajna. And we will go into that. We will keep moving steadily into it. But I'm just trying to tell you that we must change our view of how we look at people and situations. Everything is designed beautifully and perfectly in this world and is brought into our life for a reason, in a season. And it is just to extract the best out of us. Because on our own, we will never want to face hardships. We will never want to face problems. But the so-called problems, are brought in. You may say it comes from karma. You may say it's perfectly ordained at this right point of time for it to happen. It comes in so that we, reach the next stage. So that's how this principle works. So with that, I'd like to thank all of you for being here today. And I would like to open up for any experience sharing or questions that you might have. Thank you so much. Sairam.